Chat. We're back. They changed the layout of YouTube. Obviously, this isn't why people are clicking on this stream. You know, you want to see the Ryan Cohen interview, but I always think it's interesting when they change up YouTube a little bit. They made the background like pitch black now. And when you go to your content, you have like the estimated revenue tab here, whereas it used to be likes and I think comments. Now there's no like tab, so I guess likes don't matter that much. I don't know. And then I turned my comments off, obviously, because every comment I get is negative for some reason. Probably just because I post about GameStop, and clearly people are super negative about it. So I turned my comments off because I don't really care what negative people have to say. So that's kind of cool. And then they added shows. I don't really know what that's all about. I don't know what shows, I guess. I mean, they also have like the podcast tab they added forever ago. But now you have a shows tab, which is pretty interesting. And yeah, so that's that. My channel's dead, basically. Basically a dead channel. Whoa. Hopefully that fixes. Okay. Alright, so I guess let's get into the Ryan Cohen interview. He did an hour-long interview with the All In podcast.
Everyone hates GameStop, and
pretty interesting. App Lovin', that's that stock that was up like 100x or whatever. I don't know if anyone remembers looking that up. This thing was up massive. I don't think it is anymore. Yeah, it went from, oh, it's only up 10x. Still massive, but I thought that was up way more. I thought it was like a penny stock that turned into $1,000 stock. But I guess that's not the one I'm thinking of. Alright. Well, I guess we got no chatters today. Before we watch the interview, there's a few things we gotta go over. So I guess we can wait for some chatters if anyone's gonna come and be in the chat. Oh wait, that's the wrong thing. I don't know why I looked that up. Meant to go to sec. Whoops. Still want this.
Everyone hates GameStop.
Apparently it's been a while since I've streamed. I don't even know what I'm doing. And it's pretty early. I don't really do morning streams. But I think I'm going to start doing morning streams because I haven't really wanted to stream. I don't really feel like it. And generally, doing the thing I don't like right when I wake up is always worked out. So I'll probably just start streaming in the morning. Because I don't really need a... It used to be like I didn't want to go to the gym in the morning, but going to the gym's easy because I actually enjoy it. Streaming, I don't really enjoy streaming that much anymore. My chat's dead. All the OGs left. Well, most of the OGs left. A lot of people have left. Videos barely get any views unless it's a Ryan Cohen interview. Like, I don't know. I kind of have to force myself to keep doing this because it definitely seems like a big waste of time. I come in here and like 4 people watch. Nobody chats. Probably mostly bots. Kind of a waste of my time, but yeah. So I'm gonna start doing streams in the morning. What's up, Hugh? Other Hugh. I don't know what happened to Hugh G. I think he doesn't watch the stream anymore. That's exactly what I'm talking about. All the OGs left. All the people who used to come in and watch the stream all day, every day, and support the stream. A lot of them are gone. So, it's not very motivating. It's like your stream's supposed to grow as you make videos and stream. Mine does the exact opposite. My stream declines. What's up, Moose? How was your golf matches this weekend, Moose? Oh yeah, so Form 24, this is probably for the interview we're about to watch. But it should have an update. Yeah, they own 4.3 million shares of eBay and 39 million of put call pairs. So they haven't been buying more eBay because the last few they had another 424 on June 22nd. Same amount of shares, same amount of put calls. So they're not buying more shares, it doesn't seem like. Which is kind of weird because they're at like 9.6% or something like that. And then they dropped the CEO compensation. They came out with this 14A, DEFA 14A, which is additional definitive proxy soliciting materials and Rule 14A12 material. And here, I'll blow it up here. Let's see. So, supplement to Gamestop Corp. Proxy statement and notice of annual meeting of stockholders for the 2026 annual meeting of stockholders to be held on July 7th, 2026. The supplement to the definitive proxy statement filed by GameStop with the SEC on May 22nd, 26. Relating to our 26th meeting of stockholders to be held on July 7th, 26 at 10 a.m. Central Daytime. Is being filed to withdraw Proposal 4, the CEO Performance Award, the stockholder consideration at the annual meeting, and to disclose the commencement of a purported class action lawsuit filed by the Court of Chancery of the State of Delaware in connection with definitive proxy statement and the proposals to be considered at the annual meeting, except as specifically supplemented by the information contained in this supplement number 2. All information set forth in the definitive proxy statement remains unchanged. What's up, Power Ranger? Golf trip was awesome. Weather worked out. Found the trees a lot, but had fun. Now that's golfing. Found the trees. That's so funny. That's pretty funny. So, withdrawal of Proposal 4, the CEO Performance Award from stockholder consideration. Company granted the request of Ryan Cohen, Chairman and CEO, to withdraw Proposal 4, the CEO Performance Award, from stockholder consideration at the annual meeting. The definitive proxy statement is hereby amended to remove Proposal 4 and any related references therein. When the company's board of directors approved the CEO Performance Award in January 2026, the company had not yet decided to pursue the acquisition of eBay. Mr. Cohen has conveyed that he wants the company's leadership fully focused on GameStop's operating performance and its proposed acquisition of eBay. Well, that's super positive. It makes me wonder, maybe that's why you're not seeing GameStop buy more shares of eBay, because maybe Ryan Cohen's buying shares of eBay with his own money. And maybe he's also buying more GameStop with his own money. Doesn't really seem like it, but potentially he could be buying eBay shares with his own money, because proposed acquisition of eBay, that's what he's fully focused on, and GameStop's operating performance. It's definitely, I don't know. It just would make sense, because if he's getting rid of the CEO Performance Award, he should be buying as many shares as possible before this deal happens. But who knows, man? Who knows? OG? Who the hell's OG? Oh, it's Hugh. Wait. Is this Hugh? I think this is Hugh. Why the fuck did you change your name? What the heck? That confused the shit out of me, bro. What's up, P? Ryan Cohen said in that interview yesterday that he bought like 500 million in eBay shares should be reported. OG Anuno B baby Knicks fever. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh man. Well, I'll be watching the interview here in a minute. I haven't watched it yet. Well, welcome back, Eugene. I thought you were watching the stream anymore because I did see your membership went away. I was like, oh, maybe Eugene's moving on as well. It wouldn't surprise me because it seems like everyone's moving on. I mean, even I kind of am. I'm not really. But like I said at the starting of the stream, I'm going to try to just start the stream up right when I wake up. See if I can get back in the flow. But if not, it is what it is. The stream is whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get back into it. We'll see what happens. Knicks fans are next level. They all gave up full ported Wendy's. I saw that. I saw Wendy's is up huge. And it says they're like a meme stock aspect. Heavily shorted Wendy's stock soars almost 40%. Didn't we used to talk about Wendy's stock quite a bit? I swear. When I was like doing a lot of fundamental analysis, I swear we used to talk about Wendy's quite a bit. I don't really remember, but I swear we used to talk about it. Just goes to show, being a GameStop investor is a waste of my time. But maybe it works out. Who knows? Who knows? Let's see. Oh, didn't Wendy's like post on Reddit or something like that? What is Wendy's? They got like a new CFO or something, and then they posted on Reddit. I don't know. That's like, I just saw a thing. Oh, slew of posts on Wall Street. It's on Wall Street Bets. That makes sense because it's kind of funny. Yeah, everyone's just YOLOing into fucking Wendy's, bro. These people are gonna get wrecked. You guys really think Wendy's is gonna go up like a ton? I mean, maybe. I wouldn't bet on it. These people are psychos. It's kind of interesting. It's seems like a distraction. One sec, I gotta blow my nose. I'm about to. There's like a bunch of wildfires where I'm at. Kind of weird. Hughes are back in town. First SpaceX and AMC, now Wendy's. Ice Spice did a promo with Wendy's after she got beating at McDonald's. Who the? Oh, Ice. Wait, Ice Spice? Isn't that the chick with like the weird red curly hair? So yeah, I guess that's probably a fake post. If it's not, congrats to that guy. It's definitely possible to do that, but very unlikely. Wall Street Bets is a terrible website. Holy shit. I don't ever want to look at that again. It's a bunch of fake trades. What's up, Isaiah? Alright. Should I read this? I don't know. whatever. I'll read some of it until I get bored. All right, so notice of litigation on June 15th, 2026. A purported stockholder class action complaint was filed in the Court of Chancery of the state of Delaware. Caption: The City of Pontiac established general employees retirement systems versus Ryan Cohen, Alan Attell, Larry Chang, Jim Grube, Nathaniel Turner, and GameStop. I want to look these people up. Let's see what type of shareholder these people are. I bet they have less shares than me. Let's see. City of Pontiac. Which one is it? It doesn't. They should be retirement systems. What the heck? City of Pontiac. Is it this? Pontiac Bank Corp? I don't think it's that. These guys should have a reestablished general employees retirement system. I wonder why you can't find this. Yeah, I can't even find these guys. Either way, I don't know why. I don't know. I guarantee these guys don't have that many shares, and they're just kind of. It's fucked up because me as a shareholder, I felt like Ryan deserved that CO compensation award, but for some reason, whoever the fuck this is, I'm gonna actually Google it. Wonder if they. I don't know if you can look up their portfolio or anything like that, which is pretty dumb. Because they probably aren't even that large of a shareholder. Assets was reported 62 million at December 31st, 24. So if that's... Oh. Well, I can't click on that, but it says all they have is 62 million assets. They probably aren't that large of a GameStop shareholder, so it's kind of pathetic that they're suing for this. Or attempted to sue for it, I guess. The plaintiff brings the action as a stockholder of GameStop on behalf of itself, all other similarly situated stockholders of GameStop. It's so stupid. I should sue them for suing GameStop. The defendants are the company and each of the directors, Mr. Cohen, Alan Attell, Larry Chang, Jim Grube, and Nathaniel Turner, each of whom is named in their capacity as a fiduciary to the company and its stockholders. The complaint seeks, among other things, to enjoin the vote at an annual meeting of Proposal 5 to add 1.5 billion authorized shares of GameStop's third amended and restated certificate of incorporation, as amended by the certificate of amendment dated June 2nd, 2022. The complaint also requests that the plaintiff be awarded the costs and disbursement of the action and an allowance for fees and expenses for plaintiffs, counsels, and experts. The complaint asserts a breach of fiduciary duty with respect to the authorized share amendments. Voting standard, Proposal 5, authorized share amendment. Complaint alleges 1, that the voting standard applicable to the authorized shares amendment set forth in our existing charter requires the affirmative vote of the holders of a majority of the voting power of the stock of the corporation entitled to vote generally in the election of the directors. I mean, I don't know why I'm reading this. I've already read this basically by myself. Irrespective of the provision of Section 242B2 of the GCL or any corresponding provision here enacted. And 2, that because the vote required is the affirmative vote of a majority of the total voting power entitled to vote, anything other than a vote for the amendment necessarily counts against it. That doesn't make any sense. And that the 2026 proxy statement correctly recognized this by stating that abstentions, if any, will have the same effect as a vote against this proposal. Correctly recognize this by stating that abstentions will have the same effect as a vote against this proposal. The complaint further alleges that on June 8, 2026, the company issued supplement number 1, asserting that the authorized share amendments requires the affirmative vote of a majority of the votes cast on the proposal at the annual meeting, and that abstentions will not be treated as votes cast on the proposal, and therefore will have no effect on the result of votes. The complaint asserts that these statements in supplement number 1 are false and unlawful for 2 reasons. They misstate the required vote, which is not a majority of the votes cast, but instead the different standards set forth in the existing charter. And 2, they falsely state that abstentions will have no effect on the vote when, in fact, abstentions should count as no votes pursuant to the existing charter. Okay. God, this is so stupid. Break Nation. Been a while, Break Nation. Hope you're doing good. I haven't watched the interview yet. I'm about to watch it here in a minute. Reading through this lawsuit. What's up, Grady? The company believes this claim is without merit under Delaware law and intends to vigorously defend against it. Oh, this is Gamestop's response. As stated in supplement number 1, the approval of the authorized share amendment requires the affirmative vote of a majority of the votes cast on the proposal at the annual meeting. As determined by the New York Stock Exchange, the approval of this proposal is expected to be a routine matter on which a broker or other nominee is generally empowered to vote in the absence of voting instructions from the beneficial owner. Abstentions, if any, will not be treated as votes cast on the proposal and therefore will have no effect on the result of such vote. The company reiterates that the voting standard as set forth in supplement number 1 remains correct and is consistent with section 242 of the Delaware General Corporation Law and the holding of Salama v. Simon, number 2024-1124 JTL, 24 WL 4906737. In addition, the avoidance of doubt, none of the shares authorized pursuant to the authorized share amendment, if approved, will be issued or reserved for issuance in connection with the CEO Performance Award or any other compensation arrangement for Mr. Cohen. The preceding description of the complaint does not purport to be complete and is qualified in its entirety by reference to the complaint, a copy of which in the form file of the court is attached here to Exhibit A to the supplement number 2. KCR. What's up, KCR? Hope you're doing good, bro. Response to commentary on CEO Performance Award adjustment in connection with proposed eBay transaction. Certain media reports and public commentary suggested that Mr. Cohen can earn a significant portion of the CEO Performance Award, approved by the board subject to stockholder approval, merely by completing an acquisition of eBay. However, the terms of the CEO Performance Award require the compensation committee of the company to equitably adjust the market capitalization hurdles and cumulative performance EBITDA hurdles set forth in the CEO Performance Award if the company acquires eBay using its stock. Section 2 of the non-qualified option award grant notice states that. Wait. The terms of the CEO Performance Award required the compensation committee of the company to equitably adjust the market capitalization hurdles and cumulative performance EBITDA hurdles. Oh shit, that's actually super positive. That means their hurdles and market cap was probably too low, potentially. Okay, so it says milestone adjustments in the event of certain corporate transactions. The performance hurdles will be adjusted by the committee equitably and proportionately as determined by the committee in a manner designed to preserve the economic opportunity provided under the award. A, higher to account for acquisition activity for which stock is provided as consideration, and B, lower to account for a split-up, spin-off, dividend, or other distribution, whether in the form of cash shares or other securities or other property, or divestiture activity in each case that can be considered material to the achievement of the performance hurdles is applicable. As such, acquisition activity by merger or otherwise for which our stock is provided as consideration could not by itself have resulted in meeting the performance hurdles under the CEO Performance Award. General info. Except as described above, the supplement number 2 does not modify the proposals to be acted upon at the annual meeting, which are further described in the definitive proxy statement at the annual meeting. The company intends to hold a vote on all matters in the definitive proxy statement except Proposal 4. Therefore, any votes cast regarding Proposal 4 will be neither tabulated nor reported. If you have already returned your proxy card or provided voting instructions, you do not need to take any action unless you wish to change your vote by submitting a new proxy card or voting instructions. The supplement number 2 should be read in conjunction with definitive proxy statement, information regarding the annual meeting, and how to vote your shares or revoke your proxy or voting instructions available definitive proxy statement, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then you have the whole lawsuit right here. But it's pretty long. And the Ryan interview is pretty long as well, so let's watch the Ryan interview and then maybe I'll read this after. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think there's anything else here that I need. I swear there's one more thing. But I don't remember. Oh well. Alright. Let's get into this Ryan interview. Appreciate everyone here. Let's see what he's got to say. All right. We got another Ryan Cohen interview with the All In podcast. Let's see what it's all about.
Everyone hates GameStop, and it seems like everyone in the media basically wants us to fail and wants them to succeed. And you've got a board that's making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They don't buy stock with their own money. They end up showing up to a handful of board meetings, and they're making a fortune. You've got a management team that is grossly overpaid. There's nothing more American than basically risking your own capital.
Hey,
so why does everyone want us to?
I need to make sure I'm recording before. Okay. Okay. I guess we'll restart. Alrighty. I need this over here again. Come on, bud. There we go. I guess I'll restart the recording, whatever. Whatever. Alright. His face is ridiculous on the... So we got another Ryan Cohen interview with the All In podcast. Let's see what it's all about.
Everyone hates GameStop, and it seems like everyone in the media basically wants us to fail and wants them to succeed. And you've got a board that's making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They don't buy stock with their own money. They end up showing up to a handful of board meetings, and they're making a fortune. You've got a management team that is grossly overpaid. There's nothing more American than basically risking your own capital. So why does everyone want us to fail?
I'm going all in. Oh yeah, I'm going all in on GameStop.
AppLovin started with an $8 domain and no VC funding. They built anyway and became one of the largest ad platforms in the world. Now they're bringing
Yo, App Lovin's crazy. It's up like 10x in 2 years, the stock. I don't know much about the business, but pretty interesting. I can't wait for this interview. Ryan's gonna drop some bangers, I'm sure. It's an hour-long interview.
That same engine to e-commerce through AppLovin ads. Your ads run inside mobile games, reaching over a business for AppLovin. Ryan Cohen, welcome to the All In interview. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I think it's been like a decade, which is crazy how old we get since you and I last had dinner in New York. This was before several chapters of your life unfolded. And it's great to be talking with you today. You're doing something really interesting right now, trying to acquire and run eBay, which obviously is a big story right now that takes us back 25, 30 years to the start of the internet.
Man, I want to get a Ryan Cohen interview so bad. I think it would be hype. I think there's a lot of good questions that me and the chat could ask that none of these interviewers would ask.
But I want to talk a little bit about your story first, if that's okay. And I'd love for folks that are watching this or listening to this to learn a little bit about you and the journey you've been on that brings you to this moment. Maybe we can go back to the business you started, Chewy, if that's okay.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, well, maybe tell me why you started Chewy. How'd you get that idea and how'd you get into building this business?
Man, I could answer this question for him. They wanted to do jewelry. He didn't like jewelry. He went into the neighborhood pet store, and then he got the idea to start Chewy. It's simple. Man, too many people ask him the same questions. They need to get better questions going in these interviews.
From where you were coming from at that time?
We were wanted to build something online, and we were about to launch an online jewelry website. Did not know anything about jewelry. Went to a bunch of trade shows, bought hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of inventory, built the website, had the distribution, and then I was shopping in a neighborhood pet store. I had a poodle, and I was going every few weeks. And
Tylee the poodle, baby. Shout out Tylee.
It just hit me on one of my trips that I understood the product much better. It was a recurring revenue purchase. The market was still fragmented. The fact that there was still neighborhood pet stores at the time and they had not been disrupted by Petco and PetSmart was fascinating to me. And then you had Amazon.
Oh, that part's kind of new. I haven't heard him say that before. That's actually very interesting. How the neighborhood pet store hasn't been taken over by PetSmart and Petco. He's never said that part before. That's super interesting. Very interesting perspective.
On which was established and had pet products since the 90s, but they hadn't really achieved real scale in the category. So the vision was to replicate the same experience that I had at the neighborhood pet store, but do it online and do it at scale. And I looked at Amazon's best practices when it came to supply chain. So fast shipping, having a great selection, being competitively priced, and then the experience at the neighborhood pet store of knowing the products really well. And it was easy to be passionate about the pet category because I'm a pet owner and everyone we hired were pet owners. And it was all about market leadership. It was a low margin business. Hindsight, not necessarily the best idea to go head to head against Amazon, selling 30-pound bags of pet food, but we executed really well and we grew really quickly and we had negative working capital. And so it was a business that was able to get billions of dollars in revenue and not consume a lot of capital.
How did you learn to execute well? So at the time, you had little business experience prior to that. How did you learn those skills? What were the principles and the values that made you excellent at operating that business?
Oh, I love that question. Really good question. I'm excited for this answer.
I understood from the beginning that the real competition was always Amazon, and they were world-class when it comes to supply chain. So negotiating very fiercely with suppliers to get the best product costs and That meant getting to scale and going from buying pallets of dog food to truckloads of dog food, and moving from distribution to direct, and buying. Generally, the more you buy, the lower the prices are going to be. Operating efficiently in the warehouses. And so labor optimization, warehouse management optimization, getting competitive prices with shipping carriers. It was a game of pennies. And the goal was to grow quickly and establish market leadership. And the difference between failure and success was, pennies in the red is failure, and pennies in the black is success. So we had to operate hyper efficiently, and there was a lot of competition in the space. It wasn't a novel idea. It was going head to head against Amazon, and pets.com was in the backdrop. So it made it very difficult to raise capital. But I'd say at a high level, the market underestimated not the size of the addressable market, but our execution.
Wow, that's such a good answer. And it makes perfect sense because, you sell millions of products for pennies of profit. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, you sell tens of millions of dollars at pennies profit. That's millions of dollars. Excellent answer. I love that. Perfect.
The customer, I've had lots of dogs. It was always such a great consumer experience. Did you personally put your finger on that, or did you bring great people around you that understood consumer? Apart from the supply chain optimization, the labor optimization, getting the cash flows to work right, was there a lot on the consumer product angle that you spent time on with that business?
When we looked at the cohorts, you could see the customers were very sticky. And I looked at it. The reason why I moved from jewelry to pet food was because it was a recurring item. So I love the fact that it was consumable. And when we started Chewy, for the first few years, we just focused on food, treats, litter, all of the things that people are buying all the time. So the vision and the idea was, if we treat our customers well, they're going to continue shopping with us. And that's what we did. And so it was everything from the handwritten holiday cards to the pet portraits to 24/7 customer service. And if there was ever an issue, we took care of the customer, and that's what happened. And the customers continued shopping with us, and the best referrals are word of mouth. And pet owners love to tell their friends and fellow pet owners if they have a great experience. So the thesis ultimately played out.
And that's why you see Chewy boxes at every single pet owner's house
So for those who don't know, you built and sold the business in 2017 for $3.35 billion. Subsequently, there was an IPO, and that business continued to trade up in value. So you clearly executed well. But help me understand, how did you build and manage the leadership team, the management team, and the people around you to execute so well? What did you learn as a manager, as a CEO, as an operator when you were building Chewy?
Staying on top of everything. Just it's 24/7, watching all of the numbers. I mean, I would stay in Google AdWords till 4 or 5 in the morning, managing campaigns myself. I was negotiating directly with all of our major suppliers. I had a supplier that told me during one of our negotiations, actually, said it was like a 1 year contract. And he's like, "I'm so happy this is over. I never have to talk to you it was basically another year." He's like, "I don't have to speak to you for the next year." I was like, that was a compliment. And anytime someone else was doing the negotiation, I mean, it's counterintuitive. They want to build relationships with suppliers. The reality is it's mostly transactional. And so if our suppliers are sending us gifts in the mail, that's a really bad sign. It means we're overpaying. If our suppliers are telling us they never want to speak to us again, it means we're getting the right price. But getting people into that framework is not easy, because the path of least resistance is basically to get along and to be nice. But unfortunately, when you're building a business and you're losing money, you got to focus on sustainability. So just being on top of everything.
And what about on people?
Dude, that was hilarious. I can see it, man. I can see it. Oh, bro, that was the greatest answer ever. That was so funny.
I'm just trying to understand your skill as a manager of people, because clearly you did something right. You continue to execute at GameStop, which we'll get to in a minute. And I'm trying to understand, how do you find great people, and how do you hold people accountable, and what are management techniques that you've developed for building a team and running a team?
I look for will over skill. And I had a woman that was running customer service, as an example, and she came from, she was working in like an old people's home, and she applied for the job many times, and we didn't think she was qualified. And we looked over her resume, and she kept on applying. She was relentless. So on paper, she didn't necessarily have the right experience, but she had drive. She was motivated. She wanted to work, and she ended up being incredible. So, I mean, it was finding people that are diehards, that are just willing to put everything in, go all in, no pun intended, and basically be as psychotic as me. And that was the team that we put together. It was just a bunch of fellow psychopaths.
And psychopaths attract psychopaths, and the engine is running at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah. A's only put up with A's.
Exactly.
Yeah. And do you regret selling Chewy when you did? Because, I mean, it went public at like, what, 20 billion market cap, like 2 years later? I mean,
yeah, as soon as I sold it, it just it took off.
Like, it's like, were you a liability? No, I'm like, what happened?
Well, I mean, you know, typical, if you talk to the investment bankers, we're like, you know, we're getting an amazing price, and then all of a sudden it goes public, and there's basically a lot more than what anyone had guessed. So nobody has a crystal ball. Chewy was my baby. I put a lot of, I love that business. And so, yeah, and everything works out for a reason in life, one way or another.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be having this conversation if I was still running Chewy. So, or at least maybe we would, but it would be about dog food instead of something.
Yeah, we'd be talking about how you built a $100 billion market cap dog food company. But
exactly.
So after you sold it,
for real though, he probably would have turned Chewy into a multi-$100 billion business. He's just that guy, bro. He's that guy.
You kind of became a pretty active investor. Is that a fair statement about the next chapter for you?
I went activist for the first time. Yeah, that's an accurate statement.
Well, you were like a pretty active, like just general, like you would buy and hold concentrated positions in stocks. Is that fair at that stage? How did you pick companies? So what do you look for, and how did you make the investments you made? Maybe you can walk us through a couple of the stories of what you went through at that stage.
Wow, what a really good question. I hope he talks about like Apple and Alibaba and not just GameStop.
I looked for established businesses that have a strong historical track record of making money, and typically are out of favor when it comes to passive or activist kind of investments. And so that's been my general framework.
Why did you choose to go activist when you kind of started making these? Were you getting frustrated in conversations with management, decided to take it public, or was there a model that you were kind of going after where you saw others have success with publicly calling out issues in businesses and driving change?
Well, when it came to GameStop, originally it was a passive investment, and I owned under 5%, and the CEO actually reached out to me because they were fighting an activist, and they wanted me to join the board. They thought I was basically going to be their friend. They're like, oh, this guy owns a few percent of the company, and let's give him a board seat, and he'll help us basically fend off this activist. And so they kind of put the idea in my head.
This is around 2020, right?
It was, yes, exactly. So I wasn't in a place. My father had just died recently, and they offered me a single board seat. And I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I looked at the board, and they had a really large board, and they're offering me a single board seat, and it just wasn't attractive. And then, COVID, things got a lot worse. They were deemed a non-essential store, basically like kind of on the verge of bankruptcy. The stock traded down significantly. And then I continued accumulating. I ended up going above 5%. At that point, I needed to decide, am I going to file a G or a D? A 13G is basically if you want to be passive, which means you're not going to engage with the management team at all. And a D is where you are going to engage with them. So that was an easy decision once I crossed over 5%. And I remember actually getting a call from the CEO of GameStop at the time, and he's like, yeah, we were discussing me going above 5% and filing the required SEC forms. And he's like, did you file a D or a G? And I'm like, a D. And a D obviously is, it's intended that you're going to be activist, even though it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be hostile. It just means you're going to engage with the management team. So anyway, basically that was what happened.
But going back to GameStop, how did you first identify GameStop? Because the kind of storyline is, hey, Wall Street Bets put something on the internet and everyone starts paying.
Man, I wanted him to talk about like real investment. Obviously, GameStop's a real investment now, but that was kind of I don't know. GameStop was an interesting purchase back then. You had to be very different, I guess I could say. You had to be very confident that that business wasn't going to go bankrupt. I wish he was actually talking about something else, but whatever.
Attention to it and becomes a meme stock. Was there fundamental unrealized value you saw? Because you seem to be a real kind of unrealized value investor is how I would kind of describe. Tell me if you disagree, that there's real value in an organization that's not being realized, its potential. What did you see in GameStop? How did you first identify it and get involved and start accumulating?
I found it fascinating that everybody was like, for whatever reason, and still to this day, everybody hates like the mainstream media, the general consensus has been that GameStop was going out of business like a long time ago, right? Like 15 years ago. This thing was basically shorted to oblivion. And everyone was betting against it. And everyone's basically just hated it. It's one of those things where when you even say GameStop, everyone's like, ugh, like.
That's still how it is today. I could understand why people hated it so much back then, because from a fundamental perspective, it kind of did look like it was going bankrupt. But the 100% short interest was very interesting. And also, it was during the console cycle. So the console cycle is actually one of the main reasons GameStop was able to stay alive. It wasn't really because the stock squoze and they did a share offering. If it wasn't for the console cycle and all the new consoles coming out, GameStop probably would have went bankrupt.
Really? You're an investor in GameStop? So that's always, for as long as I remember, that's basically been the reputation, is like the underdog. Everyone loves to take the other side of the trade or bet against it. And so I like that. Like, I like the idea of going into a situation where you're basically running into a burning house. And I originally did it as an investor, because typically that's where you see opportunities, is when there's a lot of pessimism and fear. And then, I ended up basically not necessarily intentionally joining the board and then ultimately being the CEO. But that wasn't the original plan. The original plan was basically to be a passive investor. And then I basically ended up it's like there was no one else to do the job. So someone needs to do it. And here we are today.
Was there a thesis on value realization, or was it just about the market had the value wrong? Did you think at the time there was operational changes that could drive more value? Or was it just like, hey, everyone's got this shorted. Everyone's got this to the wrong side.
The original thesis was that there's an upcoming console cycle.
Damn, called it. Called it. Oh, I'm too good at this, bro. I'm too good at this.
And that they're probably going to survive until the upcoming console cycle.
The only reason I know that is because I watch Roaring Kitty streams, and he talked about that a ton. But if you watch the mainstream media, they'll try to promote it that the only reason GameStop survived is because the stock squoze and they did the share offering and raised all that money. But in reality, it's because of this console cycle. And then, the shorts were forced to close because the business wasn't going out of, it wasn't going bankrupt.
And the new PlayStation and Microsoft Xbox comes out, and it was a very cyclical business. And GameStop typically does very well in the beginning of the console cycle when the market is very, very tight and people are basically running a GameStop to buy hardware and software. And so that was the original thesis. And then as
consoles back then were like Pokemon today as well. You weren't able to get them. Everyone had bots buying the consoles, and then they'd go and flip them. Literally everything that was happening in 2020 for like gaming is happening today with Pokemon, and it's trading cards in general. It's very interesting.
As I got pulled in, obviously the business is completely different and the thesis has changed. But that's where I started as a passive investor.
So then they ask you to join the board, but you make the point, hey, if I'm going to be involved, I need to have more board seats. Is that kind of how the evolution?
Yeah, they thought I was basically just going to join the board and be a patsy.
Right. And then you said,
like, you probably picked the wrong guy to think that was going to be the case.
All right. So then you went public with your views. Is that right? And you kind of. So I think it was 2021, like early 2021, you joined the board with two other executives from Chewy, two friends of yours or two colleagues of yours. Is that right?
Exactly.
And then the stock took off and all of the hedge funds that were short had to cover and the stock price just ripped.
Exactly.
And this is the whole story. So then in 2021, the company raises $1.7 billion, wipes out all the debt. And what was the plan at that point in the business cycle? Was there an investment operating plan that you were trying to get the team to execute against?
The original plan, I learned a lot at GameStop. I went in and I had this bias from Chewy, which is basically like everything that I learned at Chewy, I was going to apply to GameStop. And it took me about, maybe just over a year to realize that was really, really stupid. But I ended up hiring a bunch of e-commerce people from Chewy and Amazon. And I wasn't the CEO. I hired a CEO. So, I didn't have day-to-day visibility on what was going on. But the strategy was to make GameStop more like Chewy. And that was the wrong strategy. And once I became the CEO, I quickly adjusted because, I just, frankly, I looked at the financials and saw it didn't make any sense. And then it was, went into maniacal cost-cutting mode, efficiency, basically focusing on what GameStop is really good at, which is the pre-owned side of things, and focused on running the retail business very, very well. And then ultimately that led us to the category of collectibles, which today the business is a leader in the collectibles category, and software makes up a very small percent of the business. But there were a lot of learnings on the way. And you look at basically Chewy and GameStop, you say, well, they're both retailers. You take the same playbook, but that was not the case.
I think when you see Grand Theft Auto 6 come out and you have another console cycle release, though, you will see those numbers start to boost quite a bit. And maybe collectibles will start to lose favor. Yeah, I don't know, just an idea, but we'll see.
Totally different animal. And, one is you've got repeat purchases, and you've got these really sticky cohorts. And, we can never overbuy inventory, for instance, at Chewy, because we would end up ultimately selling it. The revenues were growing and we turned the inventory very quickly, whereas we ended up buying all kinds of inventory at GameStop and ended up having a bunch of TVs and inventory that ends up getting stuck in the stores. And if you don't sell it, you end up basically taking down, losing a lot of money and marking it down. So a lot of learnings along the way for me to understand physical retail, which when I joined the board, when I became CEO, I had zero physical retail experience. So
did you think a lot about, here are the different categories we could leverage this GameStop network, the stores, the consumer into, besides collectibles? How did you kind of pick the expansion into collectibles versus any other sort of used category you might be able to kind of move into?
We were already in the category. We weren't deep in the category. And we did try a few different other things within consumer electronics that just really didn't end up taking off like collectibles did. And, if you look at TCG in particular, but now we're growing in sports as well, has been very, very, very popular. So we tried a few different things, and the trade-in model especially, worked really well, where like today you could basically bring in you can bring in a graded PSA card 8 and above, and we will give you cash on the spot. We buy back the card, and then we either sell it in the store or we bring it back to our warehouses and we sell it online. So that was very similar to the trade-in model that we had on both hardware and software, and it was very extendable to the trading cards category as well.
So are they not getting their power pack inventory from trade-ins? That's where I thought a lot of the inventory was coming from, but maybe not.
As you made this change, did you have to change the team a lot, management team? I mean, what was the turnover like after you became CEO at the leadership level and then below the leadership level?
It was identifying the talent at the company and basically having them working directly with them. Like the people who know GameStop the best have been the people that have been there for a long time. And me working closely with them ended up working really well.
You brought in others, obviously, as well to complement them.
Yeah, some. But I mean, generally, working with the people that have been there that know the business really well.
Yeah. Some folks who have managed multiple businesses or been CEO and applied their skills to different business lines. I interviewed this guy, Charles Koch, a few weeks ago from Koch Industries. He's got a whole set of principles that he tries to apply to running a business. And those principles he's used to build and acquire and operate multiple different kinds of businesses. And he transforms the business by applying his principles to how he runs them. Do you have a similar sort of framework or model or machine that you use for running the business, assessing what's working and what's not working, that you then bring to bear on GameStop, on Chewy, and maybe next on eBay, that you've used repeatedly that works well for you? Or is everything kind of truly Zen mind, beginner's mind, first principles approach to thinking about the business?
I'm sure I do, but I'm not good at articulating it. So I don't know if I'm the right person to be able to say what's going through my brain. Sometimes like whatever I'm feeling, I can't even necessarily describe it. And if I describe it, it ends up being wrong. So someone else could probably do a better job at answering that question than me.
What do you think someone else that's worked for you repeatedly would say it's like to work with you?
You'd have to ask them.
Okay. So
hopefully
let's go
not
through the
good things. Hopefully not good things.
Yeah, the pressure is on.
I'm going all in.
Trust becomes trust itself. The numbers speak for themselves in terms of what
They did a NASDAQ commercial? That was kind of weird.
you've delivered at GameStop, I think collectibles is now 42% of revenue, $350 million. In Q1, revenue was $835 million. You grew at 14% year over year. You cut SG&A from 228 to 202. You have $9.7 billion in cash, $333 million in free cash flow. And the board's just authorized a share repurchase. So it's pretty tremendous how you've operated this business. So help me understand a little bit, as you're building GameStop, operating it and executing, what makes you lift your head up and say, hey, we should be doing acquisitions and looking at other things instead of just building everything organically in-house?
If you look at the size of the business that I can build organically with GameStop, it's nice, it's okay, but I like to do big things. And, Chewy is a good example. It could have been a $500 million business. It could have been a $100 million business. It could have been profitable if we would have spent a lot less money on marketing. But life is too short to do it small. So we have if you look at how complementary, and as we've gone into the collectibles space, I've come to appreciate eBay differently. And if you look at how complementary these two businesses in, from a lot of different dimensions, the secondary market side of the business, the collectible side of the business, the ability to provide liquidity to consumers, what we're doing in stores, eBay is doing online, authentication of secondhand items.
Yeah, except eBay is in every single product category you can think of. That's the biggest difference. Everyone's so focused on collectibles and gaming. eBay is everything.
There's so many aspects of the business that are similar, except that eBay is global and has significant scale. And frankly, it's a business that I understand a lot better than physical retail, because I know a thing or two about e-commerce, and it's an area where, frankly, I'm much more comfortable operating. And so when you look at how much the businesses together make sense, and then you look at the fact that it's within my circle of competence, it's all, I can't stop thinking about it. So I look at Chewy as like, Chewy in hindsight, we had a lot of competition.
Oh, that's hype, chat. He can't stop thinking about eBay. Dude, we're so lucky to be invested in GameStop right now. I feel like this is insane. This is just the beginning as well. And there's just so many haters, and the people who aren't haters are too scared to put their money in the stock. Oh, it's a massive opportunity. This is awesome. Obviously, it hasn't paid out yet. It hasn't been great so far. I mean, it's been a good trade. Hasn't been the greatest investment, but I think it's gonna be good. I mean, we'll see.
In the pet space that were really well funded, and they were decent operators, and they didn't end up making it because it was a low margin business going head to head against Amazon. And it's similar to like the airline industry, where people don't really care about the actual airline they're flying. They're just basically shopping by price. So
yeah,
that was selling pet food online. Not a great idea. And, GameStop, I don't think was such a good idea either. This is actually a really good idea, whether it ends up working out or not, but this is actually a really good idea. We'll see what happens.
Was there a moment you remember when you said, we should make a play for eBay? Do you remember that moment when you were kind of looking at the business or thinking about the business when this idea kind of sprung forth?
Yes, I do.
What was it?
I was on the toilet.
Okay. And you were just thinking about it?
Pretty much.
That reminds me of that tweet when he's with the toilet and the computer, and you guys remember.
I'm assuming you've been studying the business because you're in the collectibles business and learning a little bit about it and had this idea sitting there.
Yeah, I mean, I've followed eBay for a very long time, and I came to appreciate their experience, their moat in the collectibles space. But it's not just collectibles too. I mean, it's the refurbished tech piece of the business where Gamestop, it's a big portion of our business, and it's a big portion of eBay's business too, and the secondhand business as well. So,
but you also have eBay Motors, you have clothing, you have jewelry, you have everything on eBay. It's not just gaming and collectibles, man. You literally have everything. So, sure, in the beginning, that's probably going to be the main focus, is like the collectibles and integrating eBay's business with GameStop. But over time, it should be, the everything store. Just like, sort of like Amazon, but potentially better than Amazon.
There were other things that I thought about where I could personally add value and might make sense for GameStop, but this one made sense for me personally, and it makes sense for GameStop.
So if you have studied eBay, what do you think the team did right in the early days? Was it simply the network effect and the business took off? And once they had the network, it was hard to break the moat. Was there anything about the formula or the consumer model or experience? Because you've said publicly, hey, eBay looks a lot like it did in the early days. Was there something about early management, early design principles, early engineering, anything that happened in the early stages of eBay that made it what it is today?
I look at basically the marketplace model where they had first mover advantage. So their ability to have first mover advantage and really be the de facto marketplace online, including against Amazon, was significant. So that was really helpful. I wouldn't say that if you look in general at the growth in e-commerce, and you look at Amazon as an example that basically took the marketplace model, but also taking possession of first-party inventory along with growing their marketplace, and they ultimately scaled it, and they essentially did what Walmart was doing, but they did it online and at scale. I mean, obviously, you can't compare the two, but their focus on building a marketplace gave them a moat and staying power, but I wouldn't say that their execution was great. In the early days, it was great when it was founder operated. But since then, if you look at how much e-commerce has grown and how much market share they've given up to the likes of basically everyone, new competitors in the space that are very category focused, live shopping competitors picked off significant share from them, Shopify, social commerce, Amazon. eBay's been able to maintain a revenue base and generate earnings, but they haven't grown along with the rest of e-commerce. So, and if you look at how they've done most recently, I mean, the business has stagnated up into the last few quarters, and their operating expenses are up significantly. So, it's not to say, they are the de facto marketplace online, especially in certain categories, but that business should be significantly larger.
Yeah, and it's actually declining because most of the money that they make is going towards buybacks. I think in 2020 they were sitting on 25 billion in assets, and now they're only at 18, 17 billion. eBay should be doing a lot better, and they're only making 2 billion in net income. They should be making 10.
I think they missed the boat, and if so, why, on stores? Amazon stores, Shopify obviously have become categories unto themselves. All of those power sellers probably transitioned over to having stores at some point. What did eBay miss Was it purely execution? And is there still an opportunity to win back that market?
eBay could, I mean, and I'm not advocating, I mean, this is not something I would not go head to head against Amazon today, but I mean, eBay could have been Amazon. So when you look at what Amazon has built, I mean, everything from taking inventory and their principles of they provide a great customer experience. And so, I mean, that's why we all love shopping on Amazon. And as a seller, Seller Central is a very powerful platform, and sellers generally like it too. I don't know if they necessarily like the margins, but they can move a lot of inventory on Amazon. So eBay, by doing nothing, has basically carved out a niche in certain categories where Amazon isn't strong because they're strong in other categories. And, you know, you're buying a phone charger or new products. It's not necessarily the place where you want to search for like a unique baseball card or a hard to find pen or a used auto part. I don't know if it was necessarily through strategy or just because they ended up basically like defaulting into those categories because their largest competitor was focused on other things.
Do you think Amazon?
eBay still sells random things like phone chargers and things like that as well. eBay sells has the same sellers that are on Amazon, literally. Like if you go on Amazon and try to find something, it's most likely on eBay as well.
Amazon's over-earning right now? Because I think the point you make resonates with me. I've been involved in a number of businesses I've been on the board of, and I see the margin that Amazon takes from sellers, and everyone's frustrated about it. It almost feels to me like everyone's hungry for an alternative. But the reason you stay on Amazon is the reach and the audience that you get with Amazon. So there's not a lot of other places that offer a competitive alternative to Amazon to those sellers. eBay's got a pretty big audience. I mean, do you think that Amazon's over-earning in that sense? And is there an opportunity for eBay to step up and compete in that sense?
They charge a lot of money to their sellers. I agree with you. And sellers like it because they move a lot of inventory, but they don't like the margins.
The problem would obviously be inventory, right? I mean, if eBay were to go in that direction and you were running eBay, what do you think you do about inventory and logistics?
I would not be interested in taking in first-hand inventory. Right. I like the marketplace model and the categories where eBay is doing well are categories where GameStop is doing especially well also. But going head to head against Amazon is it's not the most attractive business.
eBay is notorious for having bought and then sold a number of big businesses. They bought PayPal and then later spun it out and divested, and they bought Skype for $2.6 billion in 2005 and then sold 70% of it for $2 billion in 2009. And then they got lucky with Microsoft overpaying in 2011 and they made another $2 billion on it. So they netted a good profit on the Skype sale. So when you think about the audience that eBay has, the user base, there's a lot of ancillary businesses you could get into. When you look at PayPal, when you look at Skype, were those strategic errors or were they tactical errors, meaning they were good strategic moves, but they were mismanaged and not well integrated, not well run after the acquisition? What do you think happened there?
Well, if you look today at eBay, I mean, I like focus. So them focusing on core eBay makes sense. I mean, my strategy at Chewy wasn't creating all these other sub-brands for different geographies. It was always focusing on Chewy. So the focus is helpful. I'd say in eBay's case hasn't resulted in significant GMV growth, if at all, or earnings growth. But I do like being focused. Now, I mean, they've recently made acquisitions, which don't make sense. But generally speaking, like I like focusing on a singular brand, and especially with a business that's global, there's a lot of upside, and eBay plays in a ton of categories already. So it's hard to do multiple things exceptionally well.
Yeah, the other example, obviously, is StubHub, which they bought and then sold to the founder, Eric, at Viagogo for $4 billion years later, but also didn't really transition well. Does that mean that eBay can't really do well in other marketplaces, or do you think it's about building the product organically in a better way to expand into other marketplace verticals?
Yeah, building it organically through eBay and through focus is where I believe makes the most sense.
What's happened with the business in the post Donahoe era? He left, I think, what did he leave a couple of years ago? 2015. And it's been about 11 years. I mean, if someone were to ask you, hey, give me your summary of what's happened to eBay in the last 11 years, how would you kind of talk through what's happened in the business? I
mean, if you just look at how they've done in the past since COVID, every important metric is down. GMV is down, active users is down by 30 million, operating earnings is down. Revenue now is basically essentially break even. It's up a few points, and operating expenses is up significantly. Their operating expenses now are, for a business that has no inventory, their operating expenses are over half of their revenues. So that's a business that they're not growing. Everybody else in e-commerce is growing, and they're making less money, and they're spending a lot more. And their sellers, frankly, aren't happy. You talk to sellers, and in order for them to do business on eBay, they have to use all kinds of third-party tools outside of eBay, because eBay's not even providing those tools. I mean, Amazon Seller Central is like soup to nuts. You could pretty much do everything in Seller Central, whereas with eBay, it's a pain, and they alienate their sellers. I mean, they had concierge programs for their top sellers, and now it's like they take their sellers for granted, and they're taking advantage of them. So the sellers, in a marketplace model like eBay, the sellers are the customer. You make your sellers happy, you give them the tools, they bring more inventory online, and you end up ultimately doing more sales, and they're not working with their sellers to make them happy. So it's not that complicated. You talk to the sellers on the phone, you talk to the top sellers, you ask them what are the pain points, and you get the engineering team on the phone with the sellers, and you start basically banging them out. But, I guess the existing management team doesn't roll up they're not going to roll up their sleeves. They're going to go to outside consulting firms to tell them how to run their business.
Is that what's happened? What you state seems obvious. So do you think it's that management's simply been complacent and collecting a paycheck, and no one's acting like an owner? No one actually knows how to execute? Or do you think they fundamentally would disagree with that strategy, those points that you're making?
Well, I mean, they're never going to admit it, but I would bet everything that they're working with multiple outside consultants, and for a lot of different reasons, and they're not making their sellers happy. So their sellers are on the platform because they do a lot of business on the platform and they want to move product, but they don't feel like eBay wants to make them succeed and is working with them to do more business together. So that's what happens when you go from a business that founder, operator run to business with a professional management team. Is, you lose the one-on-one and the rolling up your sleeves, really getting into solving the root cause of problems.
Do you believe in building long-range operating plans? Meaning, would you articulate a strategic vision for eBay and then write out what you're going to do over the next 3, 4, 5 years, so that the shareholders that are considering your acquisition offer can see both your vision and your plan for execution on that vision over the next several years? Or are you much more of a responsive manager where you're going to go in and diagnose and be much more of a tactician in iterating almost in an agile way the business to success. How do you kind of think about presenting how you're going to be more successful in operating this business than existing management?
So there are 3 areas. Number 1 is on immediately improving earnings through cutting costs and pulling $2 billion of costs out of the business. And on the operating base of close to $5.5 billion of expenses, and $2.4 billion spent on sales and marketing for essentially no user growth, there's a lot of money to pull out there. So you have the immediate increase in earnings through cost cutting. That's basically one. And then there's 2 growth vectors that I'm very much interested in. Number 1 is live commerce. And there's a large competitor that is completely crushing it. And eBay has the users. eBay has the brands. They have a platform, but the platform sucks for a lot of different reasons. And they don't have the content creators on the platform, and nobody even really knows eBay Live exists. There's like an application process. I talked to sellers, and they're telling me like they've applied to be a seller, and they are waiting to get approved. It's like they're basically stopping themselves from being successful and getting content creators onto the platform. And then the entire back end of eBay Live also sucks. So live commerce, the TAM is like 400 billion. It's growing very quickly in the US. It's very popular in Asia. And eBay Live should be significantly larger. They should be the category leader in the space. And they have like at max a few hundred people, in basically watching their sales. So that's a huge growth opportunity for them to start doing really well in live commerce. And the benefit also we have with the stores beyond basically fixing the platform, the front end and the back end, using the stores, there's 1,600 essentially nodes that can be used as studios for creators. They could be used as fulfillment and logistics, and ultimately allowing sellers and the content creators to do what they do best, to just create content. And we can help them on photography, we can help them on fulfillment, we can help them on logistics. And we can also do the authentication. And that extends to the marketplace model as well. So
dude, he's given so much detail. This is awesome. I love this. Hopefully, like, someone like me will be able to get a job doing that, because streaming and making videos isn't really, it's not really doing anything for me, unfortunately. So hopefully one day I'll be able to get a job at GameStop as, like, a live seller or something. That would be awesome.
I would focus a lot on growing the live commerce side of things beyond the cost cutting. And then the third thing is, and this is something that I have not spoken about before publicly, but eBay today is the leader in physical items, physical collectibles, as an example. And so I would extend that into digital collectibles. And essentially, if you look at all of these in-game items, AAA titles that people are accumulating, skins, weapons, all of these things, taking eBay and building a marketplace where you can provide liquidity for in-game digital items. Essentially, it's what NFTs could have, people thought they were, but ultimately they had no real utility. In-game items actually have real utility. And if you look at all of these collectibles, frankly, they're an ego play. You own art, like, what is that? At the end of the day, it's an ego play. If you look at...
Dude, a skin marketplace would go hard. Could you imagine? I think the CSGO skin economy is like 2 billion or 3 billion or something like that. So that is a massive opportunity to be able to have one website where you're able to do transactions for these skins. I, it's to be determined how they're going to be able to pull that off, but they do have a lot of partnerships with, in the gaming space. So it definitely seems like something they could do.
Trading cards, I mean, it's a piece of cardboard in a piece of plastic, and they're very, very, very popular, but there's no real utility to them other than being able to tell people you've got a really unique trading card. But if you look at in-game digital items, there's no marketplace that is providing liquidity for them. And so I would use eBay to provide liquidity for in-game digital items. And I believe that addressable market is significantly larger than, could be much larger than eBay's marketplace on physical items, and no one's doing it. And this should already exist. And it's kind of like, it's crazy that it doesn't exist.
The eBay board has rejected your offer. Is it that they're looking at Ryan Cohen saying, hey, you're a guy that ran Chewy for a few years and sold it, and you've been running GameStop. You've never really operated a business of this scale. We're not going to hand over our shares for your shares and put you in charge of this overall enterprise. You don't have the experience. You don't have the skills. You don't have the competency. What's their rationale for rejecting your bid? And what's the feedback, the frank feedback you've heard either behind closed doors or through, third parties about what's going on here?
Well, they put out a rejection letter, which said that our offer was incredible. And there was a lot of uncertainty. And, frankly, and by the way, I mean, this is expected. They don't want to hand over the reins. They're making a lot of money. And so I completely understand why they're taking the position that they're taking. But they spelled it out in the rejection letter, and number one was, that like the financing uncertainty, which frankly, if we can't get the financing, it means that eBay can't get the financing because we're getting the financing off of eBay's balance sheet. But there has not been very much engagement from the management board level. Frankly, there's been really no engagement. I mean, they're playing games. They pointed us to their high-priced advisors, and then when we reach out to schedule a meeting, they don't schedule the meeting. So
when you first started,
they're scared. They're scared of Ryan. I mean, I don't blame him. Ryan's gonna come in and put in some work, but in reality, if they just invested in Ryan, they wouldn't need to do what they're doing. They would make so much more money if they just invested with Ryan and didn't just sell shares that they got immediately from compensation.
Having this idea sitting on the John, and you're like, I'm going to move forward with this thing. I'm assuming at some point you called bankers and talked about structure around this to figure out how do we put this bid together. Where did you go down the path where you said, let's do half cash and then convince them to take our stock and basically raise the capital to do an all cash offer for the company? Is it impossible for you guys to convince shareholders, investors, capital providers, large institutions, banks, lenders, and so on, to put together a syndicate of $56 billion of cash so you could make this an all cash offer, which would make it a lot harder for them to simply reject so easily? Maybe you can walk us through the banker conversations and the process you've gone through in thinking about structure here.
Ultimately, the decision is, who do you want to run the business? And who do you think is more competent to run the business, and who's going to maximize shareholder value? Because by giving existing shareholders GameStop shares, GameStop, the combined company, at least in the very near to medium future, the earnings are coming from eBay. So they're going to continue owning eBay. We're offering them 50% cash, 50% stock at a premium to where we bought it. And essentially they get to continue owning eBay, except You've got someone that is highly incentivized to maximize shareholder value, knows a thing or two about e-commerce and running the business efficiently.
But why not go all cash, Ryan? Like, why not raise the capital? If you can raise half the cash to do the bid, why not raise all the cash, sell your shares, sell GameStop shares to investors to raise the cash that are aligned with you rather than the investors that own those eBay shares, and then go make them an all cash offer?
I mean, that is not what we've presented to date, and that's a lot of cash to come up with. So
I think Ryan's GameStop position is only worth like $1 billion, so that wouldn't even put a dent in what they need. And he would have to pay massive amounts of taxes on that, so definitely not in Ryan's best interest to do that.
You know, we don't have $60 billion of cash just lying around.
Right. Well, tell me about the owners. Have you spoken to any of the shareholders at eBay, and do you have a view on how they're thinking about voting their shares? My understanding is there was recently a rejection on the ability to call a special shareholder meeting. There was a vote that failed to reduce the threshold to 10% of shares outstanding. It's currently at 20%. So that failure means you cannot call a special shareholder meeting without 20% of the shares calling for it. Is that right?
Yeah, and so, it was close, but that's right.
And so if you go through and start talking to the actual owners of eBay today, because it's a pretty broadly owned, institutionally owned stock, have you started having those institutional conversations to see where folks are at and how they're feeling about management and how they're feeling about your strategy and your ability to deliver value for them over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into individual shareholder discussions, but
yeah,
the consensus has generally been aligned, which is they love the business, and yeah, they see a lot of opportunities. So,
dude, Ryan's been talking to individual shareholders of eBay. It's so hype, so hype.
We'll see what ends up ultimately happening, and maybe the composition could shift because, you know, if you love the business, you might not want 50% cash. You might want to stay invested. So, you know, that's a possibility too. Ultimately,
that's what we want. You know, that's what I want as a GameStop shareholder. I want them to roll everything over into GameStop, because if you have to use GameStop's cash to buy eBay in any way, it's going to reduce the value of GameStop. And sure, you could argue that you're going to get diluted if you bring all those shares and combine the companies, but I think that would be better than blowing your balance sheet to buy eBay. I think it would be better to keep the $10 billion we have on the balance sheet and just have them roll everything over instead of using $10 billion to buy eBay and then they only roll over half. I think that would be a lot better of a thing. That's what I would want as a shareholder. I'd rather have us keep our assets and just combine the companies.
The vote is on who's going to be a better fiduciary of capital and who can grow this business. Me or someone that's basically selling stock hand over fist. And by the way, has not bought a single share of stock in the open market with his own money and has been selling tens of millions of dollars. And, you know, the interesting thing in this, and maybe you can help me understand this, is that there's no question what we're doing, what I'm doing is, it's big. You know, it's not every single day that something like this occurs, but why does everybody want us to fail? Why does everyone want GameStop to fail? And why is everyone, like the media as an example?
Oh, I love that everyone wants us to fail, and you can see it in the stock price action. The shorts definitely want us to fail. And if we don't fail, oh man, it's going to be awesome.
Why is it that you've got a management team with no skin in the game? They're not builders. They haven't built anything themselves before. They've basically just been employees at major companies, have been overpaid. I don't think they've ever broken out a sweat in their entire lives. Why does everyone want them to succeed? But when you have someone that, and by the way, this is going to be coming out. It hasn't been filed yet. Maybe by the time that, when this airs, it will be. But I'm putting $500 million of my own money into this transaction.
Damn, he's buying 500 million. Oh my. How many shares is that? Can we do a quick little math here? 500 million divided by what is it? What is eBay at? 110 or something like that? I think it's like 108, but let's just do 110. He's buying 4.5 million shares with his own money, 4.6 million. Let's go. Let's go. That's fire. And he'll probably buy more as well. Who knows?
Pulled a penny out of GameStop. I've invested a lot of money into GameStop. I've been doing it for a long time. GameStop's a much stronger business today. Everyone hates GameStop, and it seems like everyone in the media basically wants us to fail and wants them to succeed. And you've got a board that's making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They don't buy stock with their own money. They end up showing up to a handful of board meetings.
I also think 500 million of eBay shares is like 9% of the company or something. So GameStop is going to own, 9 point whatever percent, and then Ryan himself is going to own 9%. So just GameStop and Ryan will most likely be able to call for that special meeting. Because I'd imagine GameStop's going to continue to buy more.
And they're making a fortune. You've got a management team that is grossly overpaid with taking zero risk. And why does everyone basically want this entrenched management team and board to stay protected and to continue running the business, and there's nothing more American than basically risking your own capital. So why does everyone want us to fail?
Amen, Ryan. Amen.
Commentators. What's your theory?
I don't know.
Have you sat down with their CEO?
I think people are just super negative because of what happened in 2020, and just the overall vision of GameStop even before 2020 was super negative. So maybe it's, maybe people have financial incentives for GameStop to fail. Maybe there's really that many people shorting the stock and betting against it that they're financially incentivized to be a GameStop hater and want GameStop to fail. But I don't think they're going to succeed.
I would love to.
He won't take the meeting?
I will fly to California tomorrow.
Wait, what did he say?
Have you sat down with their CEO?
I would love to.
He won't take the meeting?
I will fly to California tomorrow. No.
And you're the guy that's going to fire him. But he's going to get a payday, right?
A big payday.
A big payday.
And
What's his
massive
parachute?
Golden parachute.
Do you know what the parachute is for him?
It's over $100 million.
So he'll get $100 million to walk away.
Yeah.
Have you met with any of the board members?
No.
They won't take the meeting.
Nope.
Have you reached out?
Yeah.
The great thing about markets, they don't care what the media says. On the short term, they might. It's a voting machine, but on the long term, it's a weighing machine. And if the performance continues to be delivered at GameStop, people that might want to see the company fail are going to lose because you're going to get the way, right?
I literally just said that, man. I think it's fun. Every time I say something, they just repeat it. It seems like it's like I'm just so tapped in on this, bro. I'm so tapped in.
That's ultimately what's going to matter more than anything here. But I would assume that at this point, seeing the results at GameStop, folks have to start paying attention that this isn't just a meme stock. I do think that the media, in order to give you credibility, and this would be my take on this, they're going to have to acknowledge that all of their takes on GameStop just being a meme stock were wrong. And that there is actually a business here, and that there is value being created here, and that they missed that, and they got the story completely wrong. And so to recognize that, and to recognize your competency as an executive and as a CEO and as someone that can run eBay better than the installed management, makes them wrong in their assessment of how the cards were all laid out on the table. That would be my theory about all this, because everyone got caught up in the frenzy of the meme stock craze saying, hey, this is all just fake. It's not real. And everyone agreed with that. Once everyone agrees with it, no one's allowed to rewrite history. No one can ever say that they were wrong about COVID. You can't have everyone say that they were wrong about GameStop because it ruins their credibility. To maintain their credibility, they have to continue to make you seem less credible. That would be my take on it.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's a fair take, but a lot of people are going to get screwed over for not changing with GameStop. Like, people still think GameStop's going to be bankrupt and it's this terrible company. That's not the reality, so you need to be able to adapt to the world. That's what being a trader is all about, really.
So your next steps, you going to go hostile?
But the funny thing is a lot of traders aren't willing to do that. A lot of traders just continue to YOLO on the options. They do whatever other traders do. I don't really pay attention to what other traders are doing, but I know they're not successful because statistics don't lie. Like 5% of day traders are successful, or 15% or something like that. So people never change. They just continue to do what's bad for them, or they continue to have negative views, or they continue, even if their views aren't negative, they continue to have the same views they've always had. They never change. And I think that's going to be very bad for people who are betting against GameStop.
You going to do a tender? I mean, how's this going to go?
I'm going to do whatever we need to do, whatever I need to do in order to succeed.
But you're committed. Clearly.
Yeah.
If I'm their bankers, I get hired to run a process and maximize shareholder value. Those bankers then try and negotiate with you. But the truth is, if there's no other bidders, they're just negotiating against themselves. Is that fair to say? Like, are there other bidders that could emerge here that could beat this price that you're offering, that could beat this offer that you're putting on the table?
Well, it's a lot of money. It's a big premium. And beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And like, it makes sense for me to pay this for the business because of what I could do with the business, not just short term in terms of increasing the earnings, but long term in terms of really taking significant market share in live commerce and building a digital marketplace for gaming. That's something an existing management team would never be able to build in their wildest dreams. And so it's worth it for me to do something like that. And then, obviously, when it comes to their large competitors, there's antitrust issues in terms of them being able to do a deal of this size as well. But I don't know why they won't speak to me. They should, because I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to go away. But I'm sure
another option. Yeah. I mean, people could come along and buy the shares on the open market.
Dude, Ryan's a savage, bro. He's funny. He's so confident, man. I love it. I love his confidence.
Too, and vote in favor of your offer. So, yeah. I mean, this is what often happens in these sorts of situations historically is the shareholder base can turn over. And if people like the premium on the stock today and they don't want to own GameStop stock tomorrow, there's probably going to develop a good market for trading the shares if the market starts to believe your story, I would imagine, right? And so That might happen here as well. So look,
there's a lot of different escalation paths that we have in our toolkit.
And we'll see them. Are you working with bankers or are you doing this alone?
Yeah, we're working with bankers and high-priced advisors.
Okay. Well, look, Ryan, this has been awesome to get to know you and hear about your history and your vision for where you want to take GameStop and eBay. Really, man, the best of luck to you in the process. And thanks for speaking with us.
I appreciate it. Great speaking to you, Dave.
Dude, that was awesome. That might be one of the best Ryan Cohen interviews yet. I swear I say that like every interview, but that one was really good. Very good. A lot of details. And Ryan's buying 500 million of eBay. I mean, I'm assuming that's, you know, what he's pointing towards. I don't think he's going to be putting 500 million in GameStop. You know, GameStop already has their buyback. So, I don't think he needs to buy any more GameStop shares. But yeah, very interesting, good interview. I loved it. An hour and 15-minute long stream clip as well. The views are shit. I don't know. The views are complete shit on this stream. We have 100 views, and we're about to hit the 2-hour mark. Usually it's over 100 views an hour, so the views are very low. Obviously, the engagement in the stream is pretty low. There's a few people that popped in. Ruben, what's up? Kalaluka, Kev, Risk Take, what's up? Afghan, how you doing, Afghan? But yeah, so pretty interesting. I don't know if I want to read this. I already read this by myself. What time is it? 10:30. I guess we'll read through this. I don't know if I'll read the whole thing. We'll see. What's up, Eat, Trade, Travel? Hope you're doing good. Hope you're traveling. Hopefully you're having a good time on your travels. I peek at your videos sometimes. Traveling content really isn't, like, I don't really like watching traveling content, but I check out your videos every now and then. See where you're going, what you're doing. You go to some interesting places. I like it. I just, traveling, like I said, traveling content's just not really, I'm not really interested in it. I'd rather go and travel myself and make my own traveling content, but I'm stuck in this, shithole house. But we won't get into that. Alright, so, let's see. So in the Court of Chancery, State of Delaware, City of Pontiac Reestablishment General Employees Retirement System, on behalf of itself and all other similarly situated stockholders. These people shouldn't be speaking for me. I don't think anyone who's a GameStop stockholder agrees with this lawsuit. So fuck Pontiac and retirement systems, the City of Pontiac, whatever this is. Screw these people. They don't speak for me. And then the defendants, Ryan Cohen, Alan Attell, Larry Chang, Jim Groob, Nathaniel Turner, and GameStop Corp. Plaintiff, the City of Pontiac Reestablishment General Employees Retirement System, as a stockholder at GameStop, brings the following verified class action complaint against the company and the members of GameStop's board of directors on behalf of himself and all other similarly situated stockholders of GameStop. The allegations herein are based upon investigations made by and through its attorneys and review of publicly available information except as those all allegations that pertain to the plaintiff himself. Nature of the action. A corporate CEO decides that he should be paid like a, quote, superstar. He asks his board of directors, filled with his longtime colleagues and loyalists, for a $35 billion pay package. They agree, provided the CEO recuses his 9.3% voting power from a mandatory stockholder vote, and expressly promised the unaffiliated stockholders will therefore determine the outcome of the compensation package. 2. In the ensuing weeks, investors presumably let the board know that the CEO is no superstar. What? Ryan Cohen is a superstar. Ryan Cohen 100% deserves that pay package, and anyone who doesn't think so, I think you don't, I don't know, maybe you just don't appreciate what Ryan's done and what he's going to do, but Ryan Cohen deserves that, especially if you make a 10x on the stock. Like, you're investing now at a 9.6 billion market cap, and the top tranche is 100 billion market cap with 10 billion EBITDA. If you 10x your value on your investment, Ryan deserves that compensation package, bro. He's gonna make you a multi-millionaire if you just fucking go in on the investment. But, oh man, whatever. After delaying the planned vote for months, in late May, the board reverses its previous condition and issues a proxy statement allowing the CEO to vote his shares, stating that the solicitation of a majority of the unaffiliated is not a condition of the $35 billion pay package. See, I don't know if they actually changed that or not. I don't think so, but maybe they did. I mean, they're suing them for it, so maybe they did. The proxy also solicits approvals to more than double the number of authorized shares, adding 1.5 billion shares. To approve this charter amendment, the proxy correctly solicits the vote of a majority of all outstanding shares, with abstentions counting as votes against, as expressly required by the company's certificate of incorporation. I want people to vote for that. If the stock has that 1% chance of squeezing, you want GameStop to be able to issue shares when the stock goes up. Like, I think that's super obvious. You know, I don't really think the stock's going to squeeze. That's not what I'm betting on. But if that does happen, you want GameStop to have the ability to issue shares. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe they just don't like the vagueness of why they're doing this, but I don't know. This is an annoying lawsuit because this person does not speak for the shareholders. They speak for themselves and maybe the people they're affiliated with, like investment banks and whatever. But individual shareholders, I think any individual shareholder wants Ryan Cohen to get that pay package. They want these shares to be issued if the stock ever goes up, because it just brings more value to the company. I mean, the CEO compensation thing doesn't really bring any value to the company, but Ryan Cohen deserves to get paid for what he has done and what he's going to do. And his $1 billion share position, I don't think is enough. Like, he 10x's and makes $10 billion. I don't think that's enough. Ryan Cohen deserves way more money than that, in my opinion. Because what he could potentially do with that money in, 10, 20 years in the future is very interesting. Or, he could continue to buy more shares of GameStop or GMeBay. 3, 2 weeks later, the board apparently realizes that the charter amendment needed to make the pay package effective will not receive the requisite support. Undeterred and in blatant violation of the company's own certificate, on June 7th, the board issues a proxy supplement purporting to condition the authorization of 1.5 billion additional shares on a majority of votes cast standard, and asserting that abstentions will not count as votes against. 4. Delaware law is flexible, but some lines cannot be ignored and thrown out the window. Winnowing your stockholders' voting power without explanation and allowing 1.5 billion shares to be approved in violation of the express terms of a corporate charter is a line that cannot be crossed. Injunctive relief is required and warranted. 5. Plaintiff brings this action to enjoin the vote at GameStop's July 7th, 2026 annual meeting on proposals 4 and 5, which together would award up to $35 billion in stock options to the company's CEO, defendant Ryan Cohen, and 2, add 1.5 billion authorized shares to GameStop's certificate of incorporation. 6. These two matters were originally to be decided, in the case of the CEO compensation award, by a disinterested majority of stockholders, and in the case of the authorized share increase, by a majority of the total voting stock of the company. Now, however, stockholders are told that GameStop CEO will be permitted to vote his 42 million shares, which comprise 9.3% of the shares eligible to vote, in favor of Proposal 4, and as of last week, they've been told that despite the requirement of the certificate of incorporation, the authorized share increase will pass if a simple majority of the votes cast are in favor of the amendment, with abstentions not counting. 7. The voting standard applicable to the authorized share increase is found in the certificate and is repeated in the 2026 proxy statement. The number of authorized shares may be increased by the affirmative vote of the holders of a majority of the voting power of the stock of the corporation, entitled to vote generally in the election of directors, irrespective of the provisions of Section 242b2 of the GCL or any corresponding provision hereinafter enacted. 8. The certificate thus ensures that anything other than a vote for this amendment will necessarily count against it. For that reason, the original proxy statement correctly noted that abstentions, if any, will have the same effect as a vote against this proposal, expressly reinforcing the company's intent to preserve the majority of outstanding shares standard for any future amendments notwithstanding Section 242d2. Proposal 5 repeats the above quoted language and requests shareholder approval of this voting standard going forward. 9. Stockholders may not be so quick to hand over up to $35 billion in compensation to a new CEO whose business model and results have not been demonstrated. What? What do you mean? Either way, the board inferably had a choice. Tell their would-be superstar that his wished for compensation package is likely to fail, or change the voting rules unlawfully. They chose the latter. I just don't know if they changed the voting rules or not. Like, I don't know. I don't think so, but they're suing them for a reason, I guess. So maybe they did. Either way, like, I don't care if those things get approved. I think Ryan Cohen deserves his compensation package, and I want them to be able to issue more shares if the opportunities present themselves. On June 7, 2026, the company issued a supplement to its proxy statement asserting that the approval of the authorized shares amendment, which is not a condition to the CEO Performance Award, requires the affirmative vote of a majority of the votes cast on the proposal at the annual meeting. Abstentions, if any, will not be treated as votes cast on the proposal, and therefore will have no effect on the result of such vote. Oh, so that's what changed? I don't think that they changed that. I remember reading that. So they're saying that abstention should count against, but in GameStop's proxy statement, abstentions will not be treated as votes cast. So I think that's what they're upset about. But I swear they already had that, and I do remember reading that. So they're just upset that the performance award's most likely going to get approved, apparently. 11. This statement is both false and unlawful for two reasons. First, it misstates the required vote on the authorized share increase, which is not, quote, a majority of votes cast, but it is instead set forth in the certificate. The affirmative vote of the holders of a majority of the voting power of the stock of the corporation entitled to vote generally in the election of directors. And also, like, yeah, your voting power gets decreased if they issue shares, but if they issue shares at the correct time, your vote, the amount of value you're getting out of your shares is going to be way higher than the amount your voting power decreases. Okay, 12. Second, the June 7th supplement falsely states that abstentions will therefore have no effect on the result of such vote. In fact, abstentions should, and according to the certificate, must count as no votes. 13. GameStop's audacious attempts to reduce the power of its disinterested shareholders. I'm very interested. I'm a very interested shareholder. I don't know what this guy's talking about. In contrast to its prior public statements and in disregard of its certificate of incorporation, must stop, Cohen may want $35 billion. That does not allow him and his board to disenfranchise stockholders and violate Delaware law along the way. Injunctive and equitable relief is warranted. I disagree with that, but okay. Parties. 14. Plaintiff Pontiac Reestablished General Employees Retirement System is a stockholder of GameStop and has been at all relevant times a stockholder of GameStop. I wonder how many shares they actually have, because whatever. Defendant Ryan Cohen is Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of GameStop. He was elected Chairman of the Board in June 2021 and appointed CEO in September 2023. He previously founded and served as CEO of Chewy, which was sold to PetSmart prior to Cohen stepping down as Chewy's CEO in 2018. 16. Alan Attell holds the role of lead independent director of GameStop and chair of the compensation committee. While the proxy statement asserts that Attell is independent of Cohen, Attell owes his career to Cohen, having served as CEO of Chewy from 2011 to 2017, and having overseen its expansion from 3 people to over 10,000 employees and $3 billion in revenues. He realized an undisclosed amount of financial proceeds in connection with the sale of Chewy to PetSmart in May 2017, giving him deep financial and business ties to Cohen. Moreover, Attell was brought on the board at the direction of Cohen because, according to the proxy statement, Mr. Cohen believed that Attell would bring deep expertise in e-commerce, online marketing, finance, and strategic planning to the company given his prior business experience at Chewy. In addition, Attell has served as trustee to Cohen's estate. This is hardly the background of a lead independent director. Defendant Larry Chang, our boy, like Attell, was appointed to the board of directors in 2021 at the direction of Cohen and is a member of compensation committee that approved Cohen's potential $35 billion equity award. He is co-founder and managing partner of Volition Capital, LLC, an equity investment firm, and was first investor in Chewy. As a result, he realized an undisclosed amount of financial proceeds in connection with the sale of Chewy to PetSmart in May 2017. Defendant Jim Grube, like defendants Attell and Chang, was appointed to the board of directors in 2021 at the direction of Cohen and is a member of the compensation committee that approved Cohen's potential $35 billion equity award. Mr. Grube was also an insider at Chewy, serving as CFO of Chewy from 2015 through 2018 while Cohen was CEO. Mr. Grube similarly realized an undisclosed amount of financial proceeds in connection with the sale of Chewy to PetSmart in May 2017, giving him deep financial and business ties to Cohen. Defendant Nathaniel Turner has been a member of the board since 2024. He is not considered by GameStop to be independent, given that he is a CEO and chairman of Collectors Holdings, which developed a digital trading card platform in collaboration with GameStop. He and Cohen are the only members of the board that do not sit on the compensation committee. 20. Defendants Cohen, Attell, Chang, Grube, and Turner are referred to herein collectively as the director defendants. In their capacity as directors, they are each responsible as fiduciaries to the company and its stockholders. The director defendants authorized or allowed their names to be used in the distribution of the company's proxy statement for the July 7, 2026 meeting of stockholders. 21. Defendant GameStop is a corporation organized under the laws of the state of Delaware. The company's last fiscal year ended January 31st, 2026. According to the proxy statement, as of May 20th, 2026, there were 448 million shares of common stock outstanding, of which Cohen owns 42 million, or 9.3%. The company's stock is traded on the New York Stock Exchange under the symbol GME. GameStop offers games, collectibles, and entertainment products through its stores and e-commerce platforms. I mean, in reality, Ryan doesn't even need the performance award. If he's just going to put 500 million in eBay, I mean, that's like, I forget exactly, it's like 157 million or something like that at 2260 or 2066. So that's 7.6 million shares. So 7.6 million shares times 2066. I don't think I did that math right. Oh wait, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. All right, so you do 157 million times 2066. So that'd be 3.2 billion. So he's already doing 500,000 into eBay right now. So he's putting in like a fifth of his money into eBay right now. So He could keep buying more potentially, and then his compensation award is kind of irrelevant because if he just acquires all the stock right now, whether it be, buy more GameStop shares or just buy a bunch of eBay shares, he's going to get that same value, it seems like. How much longer is this? All right. Let's get this done and then end the stream. The Extraordinary 35 Billion CEO Equity Award. On January 7th, 2026, GameStop issued a press release announcing that the GameStop board had granted the CEO Performance Award to Ryan Cohen, the company's CEO and executive chairman, subject to approval at a meeting of the company's stockholders. The total award consists of stock options to purchase 171.5 billion shares. Oh, okay, so I was off a little bit, so we'll just say 3.5 billion. Company Class A stock at a stock price of $20.66 per share. The award is divided into 9 tranches and is dependent on GameStop's achievement of certain market capitalization and EBITDA hurdles. According to the January 7th press release, the effectiveness of the CEO Performance Award was to be subject to the approval of GameStop's disinterested stockholders, who will be asked to approve it at a special meeting that is expected to be held in March or April 2026. Why does it say disinterested stockholders? I don't really get that. Maybe the person suing is disinterested, but anyone who's a real GameStop investor doesn't really care about this stuff. They want to see Ryan get paid, and they want to see the business do well. And my stream just clapped. What happened? Are we back? The stream just got clapped. Are we back? Back. That was weird. The January 7th press release unequivocally stated that the vote on the award would exclude Cohen shares and that unaffiliated stockholders would determine its outcome. Mr. Cohen will recuse himself from the vote on the award so that GameStop's other stockholders have the opportunity to determine the outcome. Disinterested means impartial. Shareholder who is not considered to have a personal or material interest in the corporate transaction. That's fair then. I guess I don't benefit from it, so that's fair. That's fair. January 7th press release unequivocally stated that the vote on the award would exclude Cohen shares and that unaffiliated stockholders would determine its outcome. Mr. Cohen will recuse himself from the vote on the award so that GameStop's other stockholders have the opportunity to determine the outcome. The CEO Compensation Award is a grant date fair value of $2.5 billion. If the various triggers in the award are achieved in the next 10 years, the amount of compensation to Mr. Cohen could reach $35 billion. 26. Given the enormity of this award, GameStop includes a new risk disclosure in its March 24th, 2026 10K, warning of the severe negative effects this award could have on GameStop. Given the magnitude of the award necessary to incentivize Mr. Cohen's performance, commensurate with the magnitude of the hurdles underlying the CEO Performance Award, if achieved, this would result in dilution of stockholders, voting power or economic rights, and may result in the creation or entrenchment of voting positions that could meaningfully influence the direction of GameStop. If Mr. Cohen were to sell a large portion of his shares following the required holding periods, it may further impact the share price of GameStop's common stock. If achieved and exercised in full, the CEO Performance Award would result in Mr. Cohen acquiring a significant number of shares, thereby increasing his existing voting power and influence over the direction of GameStop's future growth. Mr. Cohen could have the ability to meaningfully influence the outcome of corporate actions requiring stockholder approval, including the election of directors, the results of any proposals related to our governing documents, any merger, consolidation, or sale of all or substantially all of our assets, or any other significant corporate transaction. Well, it also reduce other people's potential. Like, I would rather have Ryan Cohen have majority voting power than someone come in and start buying a bunch of shares. I think having a larger share float is pretty valuable in a lot of ways. Obviously, it reduces your individual voting power, but just buy more. Just keep buying more over time. I don't know. I guess it just depends how you view it, I guess. If you're not, 100% all in GameStop and that's all you invest in, I could see, maybe why you'd be upset by dilution, but I don't mind it. Especially, if you're diluting at the proper times. 27, Cohen and the board's willingness to allow disinterested stockholders to decide whether to approve this award or not received positive press from analysts, journalists, and commentators. Meridian Compensation Partners, an advisor to the compensation committees, noted positively that one of the award's governance, approval, and safeguards was that Mr. Cohen will recuse himself from the vote on the award so that GameStop's other stockholders have the opportunity to determine the outcome. Retail Dive, a digital business news publication for retail and e-commerce professionals, also reported that Cohen will also recuse himself from the shareholder vote, expected to take place in March or April. MLQ.ai, an intelligence research platform focused on the AI economy, echoed this sentiment. The award's effectiveness depends on stockholder vote at a special meeting in March or April 26. Cohen will recuse himself from the vote to allow the other shareholders to decide. March and April came and went without a special meeting. Inferably, when GameStop realized that stockholders may not be as enamored with Cohen as the board seems to be, it quickly reversed course. Hey, later, Break Nation. Appreciate you stopping in, man. Have a good one. The 2026 proxy statement is misleading and disenfranchises stockholders. The company and the board issued on May 22nd, 2026, a proxy statement for the annual meeting set July 7th, 2026. They have a couple links of those things they talked about. I don't really care about that. The 2026 proxy statement presented in Proposal 4 that there would be a shareholder vote on the CEO Compensation Award. Contrary to the company's January 7th, 2026 press release, however, it no longer indicated that Cohen would recuse himself from the vote or that unaffiliated stockholder votes would decide the award. I'm pretty sure it does say that Ryan would recuse himself from the vote, but maybe not. I don't know. 32. Instead, while the 2026 proxy statement solicited to have the CEO Performance Award approved by a vote of a majority of the votes cast by the disinterested stockholders, under the disinterested standard, which does not include any shares directly or indirectly owned by Mr. Cohen, such approval is not a condition to the effectiveness of the CEO Performance Award. Instead, Proposal 4 is contingent on a simple bylaw vote, which does not require Cohen to recuse himself. Section 8 of GameStop's bylaws provide, unless otherwise required by law, the certificate of incorporation of the corporation, or these bylaws, any question brought before any meeting of stockholders, other than the election of directors, shall be decided by the vote of the holders of a majority of the votes of shares of capital stock represented and entitled to vote thereat, voting as a single class. By allowing Cohen to vote his 42 million shares in favor of Proposal 4 and allow it to pass with a simple majority of shares cast, defendants are rendering a disinterested vote on the CEO Compensation Award as window dressing. Indeed, by telling investors that their votes are not a condition of approving the CEO Compensation Award and a mere majority votes cast, including Cohen shares, will suffice to let it pass, the company is actively suppressing voter turnout, as there is less incentive for anyone to spend money and time soliciting and advocating against the CEO Compensation Award. I don't know. I just don't get why they're so negative about the compensation award. Ryan deserves to get paid. And if he doesn't get paid this way, he's just gonna start buying shares with his own money before whatever happens. Or they'll just get this award approved later on. The quorum requirements for the vote on the CEO compensation award is 50% of the total shares outstanding. Cohen holds and will presumably vote his shares, which constitutes about 9.3% of the company's outstanding shares, in favor of his proposed compensation award. The other directors hold de minimis stakes, which may explain their indifference to stockholder interest. Collectively, Cohen and the rest of the board control 9.5% of the company's voting power. If the company's insistence that no unaffiliated vote will matter successfully suppresses voting turnout, Cohen potentially only needs to entice roughly 15.5% of the remaining investors in GameStop to achieve a majority of the votes, assuming the bare 50% turnout necessary to achieve quorum. This compares to requiring that over 50% of the present shares, not including Cohen shares, that would have been required under the standards set forth in January 7th, 2026 press release. The proxy statement omits any explanation as to why the decision was made to change the required vote, 2, who made this decision and whether the board or compensation committee approved this change, and 3, whether the board or compensation committee extracted any value from Cohen in return for making this fundamental change. It further fails to even inform GameStop's unaffiliated shareholders that the vote was originally required to be a disinterested one, so that, as the press release stated, GameStop's other stockholders have the opportunity to determine the outcome. 40. Among the matters that lack clarity are following. Will Cohen be permitted to vote on Proposal 4, or will he recuse himself as originally presented publicly in the press release? Well, no shit, he's going to recuse himself, just like it says in the press release. Duh! It wouldn't be in the press release if... okay. If Cohen intends to recuse himself, why does the proxy statement only require a bylaw vote for Proposal 4 to pass instead of a disinterested vote? I don't really know about that. Assuming Cohen intends to vote in favor of Proposal 4, when was the decision made to allow him to do so? I don't think he can. I don't think he's voting on anything for the annual meeting. Was the decision to allow Cohen to vote his shares on Proposal 4 a decision of the board, the GameStop Compensation Committee, or did Cohen make this decision unilaterally? What was the reason for this change to the voting standard, and when was the decision made? Was that decision connected to the company's abandoning its plans to present the $35 billion CEO Compensation Award vote at a special meeting in March or April? While much remains undisclosed about why the board abandoned its January 7th press release commitment to let unaffiliated stockholders determine the outcome of the CEO Compensation Award, there's no doubt that by removing the condition, and thus removing the power of stockholders to speak on the award, the company is actively lowering the incentive for discontent stockholders to bother with the cost and burden of blocking the award. As such, the 2026 proxy statement is misleading and omits material information that shareholders require in order to vote Proposal 4. The board solicits Proposal 5 in violation of the certificate, in part because of the enormity of the CEO Compensation Award. GameStop is separately proposing to approve an amendment to its charter to increase the number of authorized shares by 1.5 billion shares, more than doubling the number of authorized shares, which currently stands at 1 billion common shares and 5 million preferred shares. When are we going to get our preferred shares? I still want to see that. Are we going to get like a dividend of some sort with preferred shares? Still have yet to see what that's all about. The voting standard to increase the number of authorized shares is found in the Certificate of Incorporation and is repeated in the 2026 proxy statement. The number of authorized shares of any class or class of capital stock of the corporation may be increased or decreased, but not below the number of shares thereof then outstanding, by the affirmative vote of the holders of a majority of the voting power of the stock of the corporation entitled to vote generally in the election of directors, irrespective of the previous Section 242b2 of the GCL or any corresponding provision herein enacted. Given that this vote requires the affirmative vote of a majority of the total voting power, quote, entitled to vote, anything other than a vote for this amendment will necessarily count against this proposal. For that reason, the original proxy statement correctly noted that abstentions, if any, will will have the same effect as a vote against this proposal. The specific language of the proposed certificate amendment, which is attached as Appendix B to the 2026 proxy statement, leaves no ambiguity about the company's prior and continued obligation to require a majority of all outstanding shares to vote in favor of any increase to the number of authorized shares, notwithstanding the theoretical opportunity for the company to have availed itself of recently adopted Section 242D2 of the DGCL. The specific language of the proposed certificate amendments is as follows. Article 4. Corporation Third Amendment and restated Certificate of Incorporation is hereby amended and restated in its entirety to read as follows. Authorized capital stock. The total number of shares of stock that the corporation shall have authority to issue is 2.5 billion, of which 2.5 billion 2.5 billion plus the 500 million or the 5 million preferred stock, which 2.5 billion shares shall be shares of Class A common stock, par value 0.001 per share, Class A common stock, blah, blah, and 5 million shares shall be shares of preferred stock, issuable in one or more series as hereinafter provided. The number of authorized shares of any class or class of capital stock of the corporation may be increased or decreased, but not below the number of shares thereof then outstanding, by the affirmative vote of the holders of a majority of the voting power of the stock of the corporation, entitled to vote generally in the election of directors, irrespective of the provisions of Section 242B2 of the GCL, blah, 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 blah. In light of the 2023 passage of Section 242D2, GameStop's decision in the 2026 proxy statement to continue to permit increases in the authorized number of shares only through a vote of the affirmative majority of the voting power of the stock of the corporation entitled to vote necessarily requires a vote exceeding the minimal majority of votes cast. Standard permitted by Section 242D2, given the priority Delaware places on enforcing the plain language of charter provisions, the charter overrides Section 242D2. Isn't this whole lawsuit null and void after GME News released yesterday about Ryan Cohen withdrawing the compensation package? Well, I think they're also suing for the share increase as well. It's a two-part lawsuit, I'm pretty sure. The 2026 proxy statement explains that although company has enough shares currently to fulfill the option to be awarded in the CEO compensation award, the authorized shares increase is intended to maintain an appropriate level of authorized but unissued shares to operate the business. Thus, while not a condition to the CEO compensation award, a failure to increase the number of shares outstanding would make the CEO compensation award more value destructive. Upon information and belief, even after stockholders were told that their disinterested vote concerning the CEO compensation award was no longer a condition to its effectiveness, astute stockholders would have realized that refusal to approve the authorized shares increase could make the staggering value transfer in favor of Cohen infeasible. At this point, the board chose to violate black-letter Delaware law about the importance of the corporate certificate. On June 7, 2026, the company issued a supplement proxy statement asserting the approval of the authorized shares amendment, which is not a condition to the CEO performance award, requires the affirmative vote of a majority of the votes cast on the proposal at the annual meetings. As determined by New York Stock Exchange, the approval of this proposal is expected to be a routine matter on which a broker or other nominee is generally empowered to vote in the absence of voting instructions from the beneficial owner. Abstentions, if any, will not be treated as votes cast on the proposal, and therefore will have no effect on the result of such vote. This statement is false and unlawful for two reasons. First, it misstates the required vote, which is not a majority of the votes cast, but is instead what the Certificate of Incorporation states, the affirmative vote of the holders of a majority of the voting power of the stock of the corporation entitled to vote generally in the election of directors. Second, it falsely states that abstention will, therefore, have no effect on the result of such vote. In fact, abstention should, and will, if certificate of incorporation is followed, count as no vote. In sum, the supplemental proxy statement is false and, if followed, would allow for GameStop to more than double its authorized shares in violation of its certificate of incorporation. Class action allegations. Plaintiffs bring this action individually and as a class action pursuant to Court of Chancery Rule 23 on behalf of all similarly situated stockholders of GameStop, excluded from the class are defendants herein, and any person, firm, trust, corporation, or other entity related to or affiliated with any of the defendants. This action is properly maintainable as a class action. The class is so numerous that joinder of all members is impractical. As of May 20th, 2026, there are 448.6 million shares of GameStop stock outstanding, common stock. There are questions of law and fact where our common stock to the class included in inter alia the following: whether the director defendants breach their fiduciary duties to plaintiff, the other members of the class and the company, and B, whether plaintiff and the class are entitled to declaratory relief, injunctive relief, or equitable relief. For the avoidance of doubt, this complaint is filed at this time due to the necessity of seeking immediate relief ahead of July 7th, 2026 vote. Plaintiff reserves the right to pursue all available rights and remedies relating to the CO compensation award, including serving a Section 220 inspection demand relating to the award's genesis and approval, as well as to file and pursue any available claims relating to the award. Any such claims can and should be addressed after a properly solicited vote take place. Oh, typo. There's a typo. Maybe it's just maybe it is just blocking the CEO award, because with the authorized share increase, that would increase your share float to 2.5, but with the CEO compensation award, you'd be increasing the authorized shares to 2.67 or whatever. Potentially, if all of them got maxed out. So maybe that's the issue, but I thought they were, I don't know. These legal things are weird. There's too much jargon and a lot of info. So maybe it is just for the compensation award and not for the authorized share agreement. Maybe they were just bringing the authorized share agreement in as an example or something. I don't know. Plaintiff is committed to prosecuting this action, has retained competent counsel experienced in litigation of this nature. Plaintiff's claims are typical of claims of other members of the class, and plaintiff has the same interest as the other members of the class. Accordingly, plaintiff is an adequate representative of the class and will fairly and adequately protect the interest of the class. The prosecution of separate actions by individual members of the class would create the risk of inconsistent or varying adjudications with respect to individual members of the class that would establish incompatible standards of conduct for defendants, or adjudications with respect to individual members of the class that would, as practical matter, be dispositive of interest of the other members, not party to the adjudications, or substantially impair or impede their ability to protect their interest. Defendants have acted or refused to act on grounds generally applicable to and causing injury to the class, and therefore injunctive relief and or corresponding declaratory relief on behalf of the class as a whole is appropriate. Count 1, direct claim for breach of fiduciary duty against all defendants with regard... Oh, so they are also suing for Proposal 5. Paragraph 1 through 60 state a direct claim for relief against all defendants under Delaware law for violation of Delaware law. 62, defendants cause materially false or misleading statements to be disseminated to the stockholders in the 2026 proxy statement and the January 7th, 2026 press release. The acts of the defendants have injured plaintiff directly by providing materially false information in connection with the upcoming stockholder vote on Proposal 4. They've injured the plaintiff? Okay, bud. As a result of these actions of the director, defendant, plaintiff has been and will be injured. Plaintiff has no adequate remedy at law. To ameliorate the injury, injunctive relief is required in form of corrective disclosures regarding the proposal to approve the CEO compensation award, as set forth in the proxy statement for Proposal 4 in advance July 7, 2026 annual meeting. And Count 2, direct claim for breach of fiduciary duty against all defendants with regard to Proposal 5. Paragraph 1 through 60 state a direct claim for relief against all defendants under Delaware law for violations of Delaware law. Defendants are soliciting Proposal 5 in violation of the language of the certificate with respect to increasing the number of shares outstanding. Defendants also cause materially false or misleading statements to be disseminated to the stockholders in the supplemental proxy statement. The acts of defendants have injured plaintiff directly by violating the certificate and providing materially false information in connection with the upcoming stockholder vote on Proposal 5. As a result of these actions of the director defendants, plaintiffs have been and will be injured. Plaintiff has no adequate remedy at law. To ameliorate the injury, injunctive relief is required in the form of enjoining the vote of Proposal 5 in advance of July 7, 2026 annual meeting until and unless the company complies with the certificate and issues corrective disclosures. Prayer for relief. Wherefore, plaintiff respectfully pray for the following relief. Preliminary and permanently enjoining defendants and their counsel, agents, employees, and all persons acting under, in concert with, or for them, from proceeding with the stockholder vote on Proposal 4 until defendants disclose all material information and correct material misrepresentations pertaining to the CO Performance Award on Proposal 4. B. Preliminary and permanently enjoining defendants and their counsel, agents, employees, and all persons acting under, in concert with, or for them, from proceeding with the stockholder vote on Proposal 5 until defendants comply with the certificate and disclose all material information and correct material misrepresentations pertaining to Proposal 5. Awarding plaintiff the cost and disbursements of this action and a reasonable allowance for fees and expenses for plaintiff's counsel and experts. And D, granting plaintiffs such other and further relief as the court may deem just and proper. As set forth in footnote 4, plaintiff files this complaint to preserve the ability to seek the injunctive and other relief set forth herein, and the motion papers to be filed herewith. Plaintiff expressly reserves all right to send a Section 220 inspection demand regarding the genesis and approval of the CO compensation award, and to thereafter file any claim challenging the same. Okay. Exciting. Exciting stuff. Stock doesn't move. But I'm out of here. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. Oh yeah, they have some trade-in thing. I didn't really look into it. Where'd it go? Yeah, they dropped the CEO package. Let's see. There was like a trade-in deal for Grand Theft Auto or something. Oh yeah. GameStop's 20% trade-in bonus timed to GTA 6 pre-order openings. GameStop's offering a 20% bonus trade-in credit on used games traded toward any new game pre-order. Suspiciously timed just right before Grand Theft Auto 6 pre-order open. Yep. Awesome. Alright. I think that's the end of the stream. So, appreciate you guys stopping in. Oh wow, Bitcoin's below 60. Is that another lower low? Is that another lower low? Wait, I thought you guys were saying Bitcoin was a good investment right now. What happened? It just hit another lower low. Huh. Interesting. All right. You guys have a good rest of your day.